Hi, hello, welcome to episode 2 of How I Got a Job in Korea. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Natalia. I work in the overseas marketing department of a Korean skincare company. I more specifically work in influencer marketing and social media marketing, and I've been doing that for about a year now. Wow, time flies. So if you didn't see episode 1, it's about Korean resumes, how I wrote my resume, and my experience with the Korean cover letter. And in this video, I'm going to talk about where you can look for jobs, what my interview process was like, and then what my experience was like getting an employer-sponsored visa, because yes, my employer does sponsor my visa. Thank you, employer. Let's start out by talking about where to find jobs. So there are a lot of different websites and apps that can be used to find a job in Korea, but there were only a few that I found helpful in my personal search, so I want to share those with you guys today. The first one I want to share is the one where I actually found my current job, and it's one that you guys are probably already familiar with, and that website is LinkedIn. Now, when it comes to getting a job in Korea using LinkedIn, there are a few different things that I think you should know. The first thing is that there actually aren't that many job postings listed on LinkedIn for roles that are based in Korea, or at least not that many compared to the United States, for example. So if you're wanting to stay within a specific industry, for example, skincare or media or tech, it can actually be a lot harder to find a role that matches what you are looking for on LinkedIn. On top of all of that, usually with the LinkedIn postings, I found that they're looking for people with more experience. They're looking for 3+ years, 5+ years, or 7+ years. Very few of those job postings are looking for someone that's just barely entering the workforce or is new to a certain type of industry or is in the middle of changing their career. Now, when it comes to the actual job postings, I noticed that some of them will be in Korean and a lot of them will be in English. But just because the job posting is in English doesn't mean that it's a foreigner-friendly position or that they are looking for foreigners to fill that position. I found that it's actually a lot more likely that they're just using the English posting as a way to filter out Korean people that don't have the needed level of English abilities for the role. That doesn't necessarily mean that the role can be done by a foreigner that doesn't speak Korean. The next job board website I'd like to share with you guys is one of the biggest, if not the biggest job board website in Korea, and that is Saramin. Saramin has literally endless job postings across multiple industries. I would say like 99% of the job postings are in Korean. Like, I've looked at so many there, and to be honest, I've only ever found one that was in English. However, the silver lining is, for some reason, the companies that list job postings on Saramin are much more transparent on whether they are interested or willing to hire a foreigner. For example, I've seen multiple job postings on Saramin that will literally have a bullet point that says like 한국어를 유창하는 외국인의 지원 환영. If you are a foreigner that speaks fluent Korean, you are welcome to apply. Or they'll say 외국인의 경우 비자 제공, meaning like if you're a foreigner, we will sponsor your visa, which I think is kind of interesting considering that these listings are completely in Korean and they're like, yeah, we'll give you a visa. But then the job postings on LinkedIn that are in English won't say whether they're willing to give you a visa or not. But again, if you do not speak Korean, at least to the upper intermediate level, then Saramin might not be the best place to look for a job just because everything is legitimately in Korean and the website can actually be kind of hard to use. So if you don't speak Korean, don't worry, because the next job board that I would like to introduce is going to be especially helpful to you. So that job board is Cowork. So Cowork is actually the sponsor of today's video. Yay! Thank you, Cowork. Cowork actually specializes in connecting foreigners who want to work in Korea with foreigner-friendly jobs, and not just jobs in Seoul, but jobs all throughout the country. They also offer services to get that E7 visa, the employer-sponsored visa, the one that I'm on, the one that most people in office jobs here in Korea are on, if they need a sponsored visa. Now, when you're actually looking at one of the job postings on the Cowork app, you can easily see whether a company is willing to sponsor an E7 visa, or if they're looking for anyone that is on a visa that allows them to work in Korea. You can also see whether the job is a full-time, part-time, temporary, or contract position, so that if you're someone that isn't looking for that full-time job, but you still want to make some money, maybe you're on a working holiday visa, but you don't want to be working the full 40 hours, or maybe you're a student and you're just looking for something part-time, you can easily find those jobs on Cowork. And the job listings will say whether you need to be able to speak Korean, and if so, what level of proficiency you need to be. Cowork offers a lot of information on different visas. So if you go to the visa tab on the app, you can scroll through, look at different visa types, see what the requirements for that visa are, what you would need to prepare to apply for it, what that visa allows you to do. There's just a lot of information on there. In addition, if you have an E7 visa, like me, for example, it shows you the path to getting a residency visa. There are also some quizzes on there to show, like, are you eligible for certain types of visas? For example, the residency visa or the D10 or job seekers visa. Cowork is a relatively newer company, so as you can imagine, they are still growing, they are still expanding, developing new services and new features on the app, adding more and more job postings. So if you go and check it out and it doesn't seem to match what you're looking for today, make sure to keep an eye on it, check on it every few months, because they have so many services that they are planning to add, so many features they are planning to add. I won't say what they are because I don't know if they're confidential or not, but they did send me their PPT about their business model and what they are hoping to do, and there's so many things that they are wanting to add or that they are currently developing that are going to be really, really helpful to those of us wanting to work in Korea. So definitely check it out, keep an eye on it, and thank you to Cowork for sponsoring this section of the video. The next resource I'd like to share is one that I think will be especially helpful to those of you that don't need visa sponsorship, those of you that are on an F-series visa, and that resource is Wanted. So it's an app where a lot of smaller companies, a lot of startup companies will post jobs. And the reason I say that it would be more beneficial to people that don't need visa sponsorship is because a lot of these companies don't meet the requirements to sponsor a foreigner. Also, because they are so small, they're very quick to respond to job applications that come in. So for me, when I was applying to jobs, which there are a good number of job postings on there, especially if you're looking for something in marketing. In my case, they would respond within 1 or 2 days as to whether they were like, thanks, but no thanks, or if they wanted to talk a little bit more before conducting an interview. The last place I think you should be looking for jobs is actually on Instagram. Yes, Instagram. I have seen multiple Korean skincare companies post to their Instagrams when they are hiring. Like, they will make a full-on post, or maybe they will just do a story, but they'll say something along the lines of, we are looking for a graphic designer, apply here. We are looking for a social media manager, apply here. I've seen skincare companies do this, media like news places do this, and then I've also seen tourism places do this. So if there are any companies that you are interested in working at, follow them on Instagram, watch their stories, stay up to date with their posts, because they might be one of those companies that post something when they're hiring. Now let's talk about the most daunting part of the whole job hunting process, aka the interview. Now I wish I could sit here and be like, I did so many interviews in Korea, I have so much insight, and I can share so much information based on my experience, but I can't. Out of the over 70 positions that I applied for, I only ever passed the soryu or documents part of the job application process with 2 companies. Yeah, just 2. And I'm someone that had experience and can speak Korean, and there were only 2 companies even willing to talk to me. The first one is the company that I currently work for. Hey, hi employer, thank you for hiring me. And the second one is one that, while I passed the application portion, they sent me kind of a screening, I guess you could say. They wanted me to fill out a ton of free response questions on a questionnaire, and after having done that, then they cut me. So the interview that I had with my current employer was so chill. Like, it was not what I was expecting at all. I went in there being like, okay, it's gonna be super formal. I need to know when to bow. Are there gonna be multiple people at this interview? I don't know. Because group interviews, the kind that you see in dramas, those are real. I've had friends that had to do that whole, there's 5 people interviewing at the same time. Like, that's a real thing. Thankfully, mine was not like that. I had a one-on-one interview with a woman that would become my manager, and I would say we basically just had a conversation for a good 40 minutes to an hour. Like, that whole time, she only asked me maybe 3 questions that could be labeled as like typical interview questions, and then she asked me to fill out a questionnaire that I am assuming was meant to better assess my personality and whether I'd be a good cultural fit for the company. And then my interview ended with my manager basically saying, when can you start? We want to hire you. So I had a pretty good interview experience, but I do know from the experiences that my friends also working in office settings have had that my experience is an outlier. It's not the normal one. For my friends, They have had to do multiple rounds of interviews. At least 2 of my friends had to do 3 rounds of interviews, and some of them even had to do the panel interviews, you know, the kind where they're like, why should we hire you? And why should we hire you? And why should we hire you? And you just have to listen to other people's responses and go down the line. Also, a lot of my friends have only ever done interviews in Korean, whereas in my case, I would say 95% of my interview was conducted in English, which looking back is kind of surprising because so much of my job is done in Korean. So I feel like they should have tested me more, but they didn't. There are a lot of varied experiences when it comes to interviewing here in Korea, and I would suggest, I don't know if I'd go as far as to call these tips, but I would suggest that if your resume says you speak intermediate or advanced Korean, be prepared for your interview to be conducted in full Korean. Like, I feel like I got really lucky that mine was in English because I'm a native English speaker, but that wasn't the case for the majority of my friends. So if you need to get an italki teacher to do mock interviews or to help you curate the perfect interview answer, do so. And then if you don't have the financial resources to hire a tutor or a teacher to help you with that, look on YouTube, look at how you should answer certain interview questions in Korean. So they offered you the job, you did the negotiations, you got something you are happy with, and now it's time to apply for that E7 or Foreign National of Special Ability visa. Yeah. So if you've been watching my content for a while, you will probably remember that I mentioned that getting this E7 visa was the bane of my existence for a good 5 months. Yes, a whole 5 months. Like, why did my employer not drop me? I don't know. I would have dropped me. Honestly, I was offered the position at the end of August and then was not able to actually start working until the beginning of February. And I'm sure you're wondering, Natalia, why the heck did it take you so dang long to get this visa? Paperwork. So like a lot of other visas here in Korea, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be submitted. And a lot of that paperwork tends to have to come from your home country. At the time, I was already living in Korea when I got this job. I had been living in Korea for over a year at that point. And while I had prepared a lot of documentation before moving to Korea in anticipation for this moment, for getting a job in Korea, I was missing an apostilled letter from my previous employer. And then on top of that, there are a lot of documents that my company had to prepare to prove that they are actually eligible to sponsor a foreigner. So I wasn't actually able to go into the immigration office until December. And then they rejected my visa application right there on the spot. They told me that there was an issue with one of the documents that my employer submitted and that basically I was going to have to wait another month before I could reapply. And then once I did have that second appointment in January, it took the immigration office about 3 to 4 weeks to process my application and say, yes, we are going to give you the visa. Because just because they accept your application at the immigration office doesn't mean that they will actually give you the visa. But I know that not everyone has a hard time getting the E7 visa issued. I had several friends that got their visas issued within a month. They got the job offer and then within a month they had the proper documentation, they had the visa issued, and they were able to start actually working. If you would like to avoid some of the challenges that I had getting my visa, you can always go to the Cowork app and see what documentation is needed for the E7 visa so that you can start preparing ahead of time, whether that's you haven't moved to Korea yet, so you can just do everything in your home country, or if you're one of those full-time students studying at a Korean university and you're wanting to join the workforce here in Korea, you can start getting that ready. I'd also like to mention that Cowork does offer like personalized assistance in getting the E7 visa. So if your employer isn't like mine and they aren't gonna hire some type of visa agency to help with all the paperwork, you can go to Cowork and they will give you consultation. They will help you apply for that E7 visa so that you do have some kind of guidance or someone there to assist you. I think the next video in the series is gonna be a Q&A on getting a job here in Korea, because I'm sure that the more information I share, the more you guys have questions for me. But if there's any part of this whole job application process that I have not covered that you think I should have like a dedicated video for, please let me know in the comments section. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you found this helpful and tell me about you guys. Bye!